Hi, it's me, Jazzy. I'm back with another tech-related video, and today I'm taking a look at an oscilloscope. And this is no ordinary oscilloscope either. This is a Fluke PM3092. Now, this is a 200 megahertz 4-channel oscilloscope. It's quite big and it's quite heavy. So I'm going to put it down for a moment while I tell you what I'm going to do with it. I've had this one hanging around for a little while now. Now what it needs is the mains filter and a couple of the high voltage capacitors replacing just for safety, and then we can give the scope a good checking over. Now the good news is this is one of the newer Fluke/Philips scopes, and there's no presence of our favorite blue Philips capacitors, which is fantastic. So let's get it on the bench and get the cover off and have a look inside. Okay, here we go. It's quite a big beast and it's got a lot going for it. It's 4 channels. It looks to be all in good order, but I have been recommended to change the mains filter on this, as apparently they have a habit of going and potentially producing the old magic smoke. It doesn't have a rifer in this, but it does have a similar kind of mains input capacitor, or several apparently. Now with this one, it has been open before I even acquired it, so there's actually no screws at all in the back panel, which is rather convenient. So as you can see, there is a rather pleasing absence of any blue Philips capacitors in here. We have instead got these brown ones here, which are labelled as SXE. So what we're interested in changing on this is this mains input filter here. I'm not particularly an expert on these Fluke scopes, but I've been reliably informed that these do have a habit of going because they're getting a bit long in the tooth. This model was around 1996 to 1998, and the date code on some of the parts is 96. Now when I first had the scope a while back, I did check these brown capacitors in the power supply. I'm happy enough with those. But what we're looking at replacing is these capacitors that are on the mains input. So to do that, I'm going to have to get the power supply board out. And I'm also going to need to get this mains filter out. Now, the added complication on this model is the on-off switch for the scope is actually riveted to the back of the mains filter. Now this has this flexible tube system, so basically this switch could be, I guess, just screwed to this side panel, because the new mains filter is not going to come with this little box riveted to it for the on-off switch. So we're going to have to replace this with the equivalent part that we can get from Farnell, and we'll have to make alternative arrangements for mounting the switch. But having replaced this and these input capacitors here means we haven't got to worry about any problems with anything suddenly letting go. Otherwise we're going to have a rather smoky studio. Now, how do we get the board out? No worries, as it looks like it's literally tied to the chassis. Why is that tied on? Is that normal? Or is it missing some sort of fastening and someone has decided to use a bit of string to attach it? Interesting. I think I've seen an oscilloscope that's tied together before. Well, I guess the first plan of attack is to cut the string. Oh, no need to cut it. It actually just pulls straight out. Oh, brilliant. Now, I know how Philips love to use various clips and fastenings instead of screwing boards to the chassis like most manufacturers do. That's the fan control. So let me disconnect that. That's the fan control. Okay, that's that one. That's that. Now, does this just pull out, or is there going to be another trick? Because it seems too easy. So, of course, there's a screw underneath the board. Right, it's looking like that's going to need to come out. Thank goodness for comedy length screwdriver. Right, so one screw and two plastic clips later, and a bit of string. Hey, and we can pull the board out. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Right, there we go. Here's our power supply board. Noting which way round it goes. These are the three mains input capacitors. They kind of take the place of what would have been a rifer in previous models. So I'm gonna get these ordered up and we're going to do a replacement on these. We're going to have to be mindful that there's some surface mount components on the back of this. Right, it's a couple of days later and my package from Farnell has arrived, so let's see what we got. So here's the replacement mains filter. This is a Schaffner one. So this looks about the same form factor as what we've got in there, which is great. This should work nicely. These are Vichy suppression capacitors, 1000 picofarads, class Y2. I'm going to replace these two here, and I should hopefully have a replacement for that one. This one's 0.22 microfarads. There we go. Now, yes, the minimum order quantity was 10 on these, but never hurts to have a few of these in stock. Right, yep, that's a class X2, 0.22 microfarads. Okay, that's going to replace this one here. So, let's get these done first. Right, okay, let's start by getting these two out then. There we go, there's one. Right, there we go. Right, so that's the old ones. See how they compare against the new ones. Let's pop these in. These caps are of course not polarized, so no worries about getting them in the wrong way or anything like that. This is just preventative maintenance really. I just want to make sure this scope is reliable, and the mains filter that we've got in there, it may or may not have one of those rifers inside, but I don't want to take the chance as we know what can go wrong with those. Right, let's just solder these in, nice and easy. Yep, that looks good. Now, a lot of people do ask me if I wear eye protection when I'm snipping off legs, because I know they can ping off in all directions. But don't worry, I always have my glasses on when I'm doing electronics. There we go, so that's those two in. Now, just got to get this one out. Right, so back to the desolderer. A lot of soldering and desoldering going on today. Let's get this one out, shall we? There we go. That's that one out. Right, let's get one of these nice fresh ones in. This is a good little job I've been wanting to do for a while. I've had this scope hanging about for a while now, and I'd like to use it on a regular basis because it's a 200 meg scope. It's probably the best spec scope that I've got, and I do have a few around. But this one has a few really useful little features that we'll take a look at once I get this up and running. So there we go. So that's those done. Nice. Now I can get the power supply board back in. Okay, so who's been paying attention as to where all the connectors go on this? Now we've got to get this connector lined up at the back there. Make sure that goes in. That's the two plastic clips engaging. Brilliant. I've just got that one screw to put back in underneath. Right, let's get all these connectors back in. That's one. So this one's the fan. Got another one here. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's get this connector back in. I realise I should have done that before I put the board back in, but that's okay. There we go. That's fine. That's out of the way. Now our attention needs to turn to this filter down here. Let's get these ground terminals off to give us a bit of room to work. There we go. That's one. And we've got another that goes from here to the filter itself. So I may as well leave that one in situ. Now you can see we've got these little links here that go from the switch to the back of the filter, which we need to retain those. So I'm just going to bend these out. We're going to need to put these back on the new filter. Right, that was fiddly. That was very fiddly. Right, but we've got those off because we're going to need to reuse those. So now this should be ready to come out, but I need to get this switch out of here. I think if I undo these two, now hopefully the switch now should come out of this little housing, because we're going to need to repurpose the housing. Now hopefully this should just lift straight out, and it does. Fantastic. There's our switch. Now it's got this little flexi tube system on the back here, so it means as long as we mount it in the vicinity of where it was, then we are good. So the next thing to do is to remove the filter from the back of the scope. Right, and that just pulls out nice and easy. There we go. That's the bit we need to repurpose. So we're going to have to somehow get that off and then mount this to the inside of the case somewhere. You can also see while we're looking around the back, there's a little bit of corrosion on the battery terminals there, so I need to give that a bit of a clean up before I start using this. And the idea of the batteries is for the memory for the scope, so it can remember settings and stuff. So here's the filter that I've just removed. Here's the new one. As you can see, looks pretty identical, apart from we need to get this off the back because this is where our switch, on-off switch, sits. Now they've just riveted this. So this is the old one. I mean, it still functions, but because there's always that risk with these old filters, there's always the risk that it can just go pop at the least expected moment. Because it's getting on a bit. I don't know if it's got a date code on here, has it? Yeah, it has. So week 43, 1996. Okay, that's a long time ago. So it's probably prudent to replace it with this lovely new one here. This is a direct replacement, this one. Let's see what we can do about getting this off. Sometimes, there we go. A little bit of gentle force is all you need to get that off. Right, there we go. So we are not going to be needing this. This can go. Right, let's just get these out. That's it. Right, so now then. So now what we're left with is this and this. We want our switch to sit something like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the filter in first, and then we'll position the switch bracket. Okay, this should be as simple as slotting it in and doing up 2 screws. Don't you love it when jobs turn out to be nice and easy? Yeah, I've been itching to get this scope on the bench for a while now, but it's the first chance I've had to get this on here and do this, but it means I can start using this scope now. The new filter is in place. Now we just need to do something about this. Otherwise we can't switch our scope on and off, can we? So I'm just going to drill 2 little holes through this. So I've lost a little bit of footage here, but I've drilled 2 holes in the top of the mount and 2 screws into the plastic side of the Fluke case. Now we just need to get the switch back into the housing there, and it's tight, but it will go. And then I've got to solder the 2 links back on, make sure that's in nice and firm. Okay, there we go. So I'm not saying that's the neatest or best way of mounting that switch, but it's a way of mounting that switch. The 2 screws that come through are not going to cause any problems with the board there, and because this is the flexible situation, it doesn't have to be exactly in the same place, although it's near enough. So this is all soldered on, probably not the neatest soldering joints ever, but there we go. Make sure we get these back correctly. This one goes in here. Right, there we go. A little bit fiddly, but we're there. Right, that should be it. Okay, let's get this right side up. I think we're nearly there. So one thing to check just before we do plug it in, this new filter most likely hasn't come with a fuse in it. They don't tend to do, and that can catch you out. So we'll just pop a fuse in there and a spare and just click that in. Okay, let's just plug in and switch on. Yep, there we go. Graphical light comes on, making all the right noises, and there we go. Yep, we've got some display on there, a little bit out of focus. Let's try and sort that out. Actually quite a lot out of focus. Just turn that to focus it in. Let's turn the studio light off. We can see it a bit better. There we go. That's a lot better. Yeah, that's nice and clear now. Lovely. That's looking good. So it's got a lot of functions, this scope. So let's get it back in one piece and we'll take a look at them. Got to slide this on carefully. Right, let's see if I've got some screws that work for this. Yeah, I reckon these will do. It didn't actually come with any screws in the back. Maybe I'll treat it to some. Let's give those battery terminals a quick clean up as well. Okay, that looks better. Let's pop some batteries in. Right. Great. We're good to go. Right, so we've got the Fluke in its position now, so let's switch on. Takes a moment. There we go. Right, let me just refocus that. Now, there's loads of functions on this scope, so let's have a quick run through and just test the basics, shall we? So let me just put a scope probe on just so we can test quickly. Oh, there we go. We've got something there. Right, now we've got our main time base up here, so we can change that. And we've got our volts per division here. There we go. You can see that there. But if we mess that up completely, okay, here's the party piece of this scope. And this is not cheating, I promise. Auto set. Here the relay's clicking and it goes to the best possible parameters to show you that waveform. Now the great thing is when you go into the menus, you can actually program that to what you need. So if you go into the settings, you can actually change the parameters of the auto set, you can change parameters of the probe, the screen and sound. There's set up for the RS232, we won't get into that right now, but now we've got our square wave there. You can adjust your volts per division there, and you've got your main time base there. Nice, lovely square wave. So that's the brightness for your trace there. Wow, that's a little bit too much. Let me adjust that so it's nice on camera. You're getting a bit of flicker from the CRT, which is not visible in person. And that's the brightness for the text at the bottom. You've got a separate control for that. Lovely. Okay, that's nice. Let's put a signal in from our function generator, shall we? Right, so let's fire up the Enertech 4431 here. We'll put signal in. So let's go 15 kilohertz, shall we? Now, if you're wondering why there's another random oscilloscope here, this is acting as a buffer because I think this 4431 is putting out some sort of magnetic field and it's not as shielded as it should be, or maybe just the shielding's not very good, but it was causing interference with my Fluke scope. So I've put this here just as a buffer to keep this away. This doesn't actually work, maybe a future project. It's just a 20 meg scope, just a bog standard one, but it's performing a good duty as a buffer right now. Okay, let's take our test probe off. We're done with that for now. Right. And let's pop our signal generator in here. There we go. Right, so we definitely have a signal. Let's do the auto set. You can hear the relays click in there. Look at that triangle wave, really nice. It's really sharp. Again, my camera's not really doing it justice, but it's a really nice sharp waveform. Got your time-based modes there. You can change from auto, triggered, or single. Change your trigger modes there. You've got a delayed time base here as well. You can turn it on and off using your menu buttons there. You've got your delayed time base options. So you just come back out of that. It does have an auto calibration function that I've not explored yet. Let's give it a sine wave. Right, let's try a different frequency, shall we? Let's maybe jump up to 60 kilohertz. There you go. fantastic. And again, you could expand out your time base there. Square wave, triangle wave. It's just a really nice sharp trace, isn't it? So I'm happy that this is all working as it should. I've got to explore a few more of the features on this, but I've got to say I'm really happy with this scope. It's great to see it up and running finally. It's been sitting around for ages here. Now I can use this and I'm reassured I won't have any issues with the mains filter or the input caps or anything like that. So yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm really chuffed with that. Not really a repair as such, but a really good bit of preventative maintenance, and really worth doing as well, because it will prevent any problems hopefully cropping up with the power supply in that scope. I've already looked at those brown capacitors ages ago when I first got the scope. I'm happy enough with those for the time being. So it's a great scope with a lot of features, and I can see me getting a lot of use out of that. There's various oscilloscopes I've got here kicking around that one day I will get around to fixing up and sorting out. I've got a couple more repair videos coming up fairly soon. There's a couple of amplifiers I'm working on. One is turning out to be a lot simpler than the other, so stay tuned for those. So thanks for watching today. Hope you've enjoyed taking a look at this Fluke oscilloscope. If you'd like to hit the subscribe button, it's always much appreciated, and I'll be back soon with some more tech related videos. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.